Hey y'all, Van Lufa here to give you my take and my video on the jury selection process for the Derek Chauvin trial. There's some weird irony in this situation. This was not planned whatsoever, but when I went through my stash to find a lined notebook to take my notes, I don't even know what to say about that. I didn't realize it till I brought it back. Took the cover off and brought it back and sat down on my bed and went, oh, that's kind of weird. Anyway, I have notes, kids. Notes for days here, okay, on all of this. So we're going to go over all of this, and I have no idea how long this is going to last. And I would like to first start by saying that I got all of this information and I watched all of this footage on the Law and Crime Network on YouTube. I find that it is a great channel and they give a lot of comprehensive information, and they will be airing the trial if you need to find somewhere to watch it. Okay, so first we are going to talk about the lawyers, the main lawyers in this trial. The lead defense attorney in this trial is named Eric Nelson. If you watched any of the jury selection, you got to know him well. Eric Nelson is obviously a lawyer in Minnesota. He has worked in criminal defense his whole career. He has been very successful in his trials. He's also able to practice law in Wisconsin. He is a frequent lecturer and contributing author to the Minnesota DWI Desk Book, which is the number one source for lawyers when it comes to DUI laws in the state of Minnesota. And that is Eric Nelson. He is the lead defense attorney for Derek Chauvin. The lead prosecutor for the state is named Steve Schleicher. Steve, you've also seen him if you've watched any of the jury selection. He is the one who interviewed the potential jurors for the state. Steve has spent 24 years as a trial lawyer. He's a former federal prosecutor, and he spent 13 of those years in the U.S. Attorney General's office. And for 10 years, he was a JAG Corps officer in the United States Army Reserves. So he also has lots of experience. And this isn't everything about these lawyers. These are just kind of the highlights of things that I looked up. The presiding judge in this case, who also has a tough job, is named Pete Cahill. He's 55. He was appointed a judge in Hennepin County in 2007. He was elected in 2008, 2014, and 2020. He has tons of experience with the county attorney's office and also with the juvenile prosecution division. He was also a public defender for many years. And interesting to note, he is also a teacher at the University of Minnesota Law School. So not only does he practice all of these things, he teaches them as well. Okay, so on to the jury selection process. There are a few points that I will make before I discuss the jurors. And that was probably the biggest, I'll say, bomb that was thrown out there during this process. In the middle of it was that the city of Minneapolis mayor's office made an announcement that they were paying out $27 million to the Floyd family. The Judge Cahill and also especially Eric Nelson were not happy that this took place in the middle of jury selection for obvious reasons. They felt it could taint the jury, which they are so right. Also, by the city of Minneapolis paying out a historic amount of money, because $27 million for the settlement was, that was, I believe, the highest one. It also implies guilt. And so they were very upset that the jurors would find this out and that it would, tarnish their opinions and views during the case. So in the middle of jury selection, when this happened, there were already 7 jurors that were picked. So they had to go back. They had a Zoom call one day where they called back all 7 jurors via Zoom, and they didn't outright ask them if they knew about the settlement, but they said, have there been any major headlines that you've seen since you were here? And most all of them said they had inadvertently seen the headline about the $27 million settlement. With those 7 jurors, there were 2 of them that were excused because they did say that it would affect their ability to be impartial during the trial. Some other things to note that happened during the jury selection was that Eric Nelson asked for a continuance of the trial and for a change in venue. This happened after the settlement announcement came out. Judge Cahill denied both of those motions. Like he said, they would be hard-pressed to put a trial anywhere else and have, people who have never heard of it before. I understand it's probably very, very difficult because while I don't see headlines every single day or even every month really, but I don't watch the news, the people that live in Minnesota and especially Minneapolis probably see things on the daily. So it's going to be very difficult for these jurors to kind of stay away from the headlines and everything. So that was the biggest bomb that happened during jury selection. The other one was that they added a new 3rd charge. So he is charged with 3 things: 2nd-degree murder, 2nd-degree manslaughter, and then the added 3rd-degree murder. So the state has to prove either 1, 2, or all 3 of those charges for him to be found guilty. And in my notes I had written the prosecution has the burden of proof showing guilt without a reasonable doubt in this case. And Eric Nelson made it very known many, many times when questioning jurors that the defense doesn't have to show squat. And he made that very well known, saying the state has their work cut out for them to prove this, and I don't have to do anything. And are you going to be able to make a decision if I don't do anything? And also my opinion from just listening to Eric talk is I do not believe that Derek Chauvin will testify in his own case. In fact, I would be shocked. Okay, so we'll now go into the information about the jurors who were selected. There were 15 jurors selected. They started this process on March 8th, and it ran through March 23rd. There were 15 selected, but only 14 will be seated. So the last juror who was picked will be the alternate. The jury consists of 9 women and 6 men. And I can tell you that the alternate is a male. So technically the jury's 9 women and 5 men. Okay, here we go. We're gonna talk about all 15 of them. I'm going to tell you, as far as the demographical information, I got that information from Law and Crime Network. And then I will talk about any notes that I made about or observations I made about these people. Juror number 1 is a white man in his 20s. He talked about he was a chemist. He seemed very smart. And in the notes, I wrote he was a butt kisser because that's exactly how he seemed. He seemed to give them every answer that they were wanting, and he was just a little too excited, in my opinion. So that's juror number 1, young man. Juror number 2, they have listed as a multiracial woman in her 20s. Some things about her, she is a type 1 diabetic. She has a relative who was a police officer. She had some martial arts experience they were asking a lot of people that in the beginning. So some martial arts experience. And she was also one that seemed a little too excited. She was just full of energy and laughing and smiling. And I think she really wanted to be on this jury, probably for clout or something. I don't know. But she was a little too, excited in my opinion. But that is juror number 2. Juror number 3 is a white man in his 30s. He was very straightforward. He did have a friend in the Minneapolis Police Department. He supports Black Lives Matter, but not Blue Lives Matter, which is interesting, I found, since he has a friend who's a police officer. And he also had a lawyer friend. Juror number 4 is a black man in his 30s. Now, in my notes, I wrote, he's got a very thick accent. To me, it sounded like he was maybe from India or a Middle Eastern country. He moved to the United States to go to school in Nebraska. He is a manager in IT. And he stated that he was neutral when it came to Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter. They liked the neutral people, as they should. Juror number 5 is a white woman in her 50s. She has a healthcare advocacy job. She has prior experience as a juror before on a case. And she believes that minorities are treated unequally. Like I said, I just jotted down little notes that I thought were important, not, the entirety of everything they said. Juror number 6 is a black man in his 30s. He has a wife and kids. He's in the banking industry and teaches youth sports. What was interesting with him, being a younger black man teaching youth, that the lawyers did ask him that if they did find Derek Chauvin guilty, if they found Derek Chauvin not guilty and he was acquitted in this case, would he have a difficult time going back to the children that he teaches and to discuss that with them? And he said he did not, and, promised that he would be impartial. Juror number 7 is a white woman in her 50s. She does have some safety concerns for after the trial, which I understand that completely. As soon as the judge sees fit, he is going to release the names of the jurors. It won't be right away, but of course people have issues with their safety. So she had issues with the safety. She is a single mother. She works in healthcare. I thought this was funny, or not, just a little added, she sells Pampered Chef. She works with patients in a clinic. She resolves issues with patients. And that was very important to Eric Nelson when he interviewed each and every possible juror. He talked to them about conflict resolution and how they would handle it. So that was interesting. And she did state that she saw the short clips of the bystander video on TV, but she was unable to see the whole video because it was too hard and too traumatic. But that in her answers, she seemed very fair. Juror number 8 is a black man in his 40s. He has a very thick accent. How I described his accent, and I hope I'm being PC when I say this, is he sounded like maybe he was from like a Caribbean island, like Jamaican or something possibly like that. That's what his accent sounded like. So now juror number 8 is the first juror that they have interviewed since the settlement came out. So from here on out, I will usually put whether they knew about the settlement or not. Juror number 8, the black man in his 40s, did know about the settlement. He works in management. He had a neutral opinion of Mr. Chauvin and a positive impression of Mr. Floyd. Juror number 9 is a multiracial woman in her 40s. She also knew about the settlement, but not the amount. She is married with a young child, has a negative opinion of Derek Chauvin, works for a company that helps educate people on cultural differences and change. She has a strong faith in the police and believes that blacks are treated differently by the police. Juror number 10 is a white woman in her 50s. She also knew about the settlement. She is a nurse. She is also worried about her safety after the trial. She works with intubated COVID patients, and she also agrees that discrimination exists. Juror number 11 is a black woman in her 60s. She knows about the settlement, but really had no opinion on it or any details on it. She knows someone who works with the Minnesota Police Department. She has a relative who is a police officer and a son-in-law who is a physician. Juror number 12 is a white woman in her 40s. She knows about the settlement. She works in real estate. She is also concerned about her safety once the names are revealed, and she believes that she can be fair and impartial in this case. Juror number 13 is a white woman in her 50s. She also knew about the settlement. She says that she can be impartial. She is an animal lover. She is an advocate for the homeless. She stated she was neutral about Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, and also that her business was damaged in the riots that took place in Minnesota last summer. Juror number 14 is a white woman. They did not give an age, and I couldn't tell. She knows about the settlement. She works for the county as a social worker, and she has 2 relatives that are nurses. Now, it is important to note that the lawyers and the judge did ask her about having family that were in healthcare, because there will be medical examiners and people like that who will testify, and they just wanted to be sure that they are not going to call their relatives and, ask for their opinion and such. So those are the first 14 jurors. They will be seated for the trial. And then number 15 is the alternate juror. He is a white male in his 30s or 40s, a sports fan. He's an accountant. The state especially discussed with him, since he was a sports fan, how he felt about the kneeling that goes on at professional games, and he does not agree with it. He knows statistically that blacks are incarcerated more for the same crimes as whites. So he is the alternate juror. The opening statements will take place on Monday, March 29th, this coming Monday at 9 a.m. They do expect the trial to last 4 weeks. At this point, there is no plan to sequester the jurors during the trial itself, but they will more than likely be sequestered during deliberations. Now, the judge has mentioned a few times that could change, that they could be sequestered during the trial, but at this point, they don't see a need for it. I imagine it would have a lot to do with, information that is coming out in the news and stuff while the trial is going on, because these people will be allowed to go home at night and see their families. So, opening statements, 9 a.m. on Monday. And last but not least, I will talk about my intentions here. My intentions are to do daily recaps. One daily recap will be about the opening statement and what people said. I'm not going to jot down every single thing that every lawyer says. It's just going to be a recap. Because I do work full time, I work usually either 4 or 5 days a week. That video may not come out until the next day after it happened. I will try very hard to get it out that day. And in fact, if I'm off that day, I should be able to get it out that evening. Those are my intentions. I'm going to work really hard at it. It's going to be tough, but I'm just a grandma who is very, very interested in trials, enjoys watching them. I have no legal experience whatsoever, let me just state that. But I'm very interested and love watching trials. So I just want to share the information. I do believe that it is going to be a historic trial. I don't know why. I just have that feeling. I have a little bit of a feeling how it's going to go, but these videos are not about my opinion, because everybody's going to have a different opinion, and I don't want arguments or anything like that. I'm giving you the facts, and so I just thought I would share my information because it's going to be a 4-week trial, and they're not even adding the deliberations into that. So it's going to be a long process. The lawyers both have their work cut out for them. So it's going to be very, very hard for everybody to watch every minute. So I will get on Law and Crime Network on YouTube every day that the trial is going on. I'm going to put it on my 1.5 speed like I always do and take notes. So I'll just give you what I feel are the highlights, but I would recommend going to Law and Crime Network on YouTube. There's also Court TV on YouTube, or whichever channel or platform you decide you want to listen to it on. If you want to get really into details, because I will just be doing recaps. In fact, I don't even believe that my videos will be as long as this one is. This one's a little bit longer because we're talking about the jury. So if you have any other questions, let me know. Leave your comments below. Tell me if you hate this idea or if it's a good idea and a good way for you to follow along. And that's all I have for today, friends. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.